Hi girls, it's Miss Hayes here. I'm just here with my sister Demi, who most of you already know plays rugby in the Australian Women's Sevens program. So I just thought I would jump on here and do a little interview with Demi and ask some of the questions that some of you would ask me during the day at school. How old you are, Dem, and where you grew up?
I'm currently 21, turning 22 this year, and I grew up on a big cattle station in the Northern Territory. And then when I was 6, we moved to Glenmorgan, a little country town near Roma, and that's where I kind of did my primary school and stuff like that.
What sports did you play when you were young, and how did living in rural Queensland change sport for you growing up?
I played basketball, hockey, netball, a lot of touch football. Touch football was probably my main one, and then the individual sports like cross country and athletics, which I really, really loved. But being rural was kind of gave me the opportunity to do every sport. But I guess as I moved less rurally, I had to decide which sport I wanted to play and stick to that more.
So after primary school, we went away to boarding school. How did sport change for you when we went away?
I guess the bigger places you move to, the more opportunities you have. So obviously moving to a bigger city, lots more people, a fair bit more competition gave me a lot more opportunities. But also once again, I had to restrict what I played because I just didn't have time to train and play all of those sports. So I think moving to boarding school was probably the best thing mum and dad did for us.
Obviously, you were quite a good sportswoman when we were in high school. What were some of your goals during this time, and did you ever dream of playing for Australia?
I probably was a bit cruisy going through high school. I didn't necessarily have goals. I looked at a few other players who I'd played touch with, and they were making Australian teams. But my first goal was to make a Darling Downs team, and then following that was a Queensland team, which Dad always said to us, if we can get a Queensland jersey and represent our state, that's awesome. And then I ended up doing that in touch when I was 16. So then Dad was kind of like, oh, if you could make an Australian team and get an Australian jersey, that would be the best thing ever. So I guess I made those goals along with my whole family supporting me. So that was probably the biggest thing.
When did you first learn about rugby sevens, and how did you decide to start playing?
When I was at boarding school in year 10, I think, so I was 15, just a rugby coach came to our school asking any kind of touch girls if they wanted to try out. We literally did I think we did a few skill sessions, and he kind of selected people from there to come and represent the Downs for their rugby competitions, and it kind of went from there. But I don't know. I don't think I decided. It was kind of something that it was another step from touch. You could actually represent your country and go to the Olympics, whereas touch never really gave you those opportunities. And touch was often pay your own way. So I thought that was a really kind of budged me towards the rugby.
Can you tell us a little bit about the pathway you took after you started rugby, and how this took you to the Australian Sevens team, and some of the highlights you've had along the way?
So every time someone asks me this, I guess my transition from just everyday life to rugby was pretty seamless. In the way that I represented the Darling Downs, and then I think a few weeks after we were training with the Darling Downs, we had a tournament in Brisbane, and I was lucky enough to be selected in the Queensland Reds team. And then a couple of months after that, I think we had a tournament in Sydney, which then gave us a kind of a ticket to either to the Commonwealth Games in Samoa the following year or not. And I kind of ticked all those boxes within a year pretty much. So I moved up the ranks extremely quickly, which I was really, really fortunate enough to kind of show my face for. But yeah, that was so quick. And I guess the highlight we ended up winning a gold medal against Canada in the Commonwealth Games, in the Youth Commonwealth Games in 2015. So that was probably my highlight of my transition and my rugby career as I was getting into it, kind of thing.
And you were one of the youngest in that team too, weren't you?
Yeah.
Which was also really exciting. Hey, what sacrifices have you had to make to play for Australia?
I guess the biggest one is probably moving away from my home and my family and having to move to Sydney I think I was only 17 when I got a contract, so pretty much straight out of school I moved to Sydney. And it's kind of weird going back because I guess I didn't really think about it. I got a contract, I signed it, I moved straight to Sydney. It was all such a blur now we look back at it, and I didn't really think about it. But I guess, yeah, that is my biggest sacrifice, to be away from my family. But in a way, when you love something, when you love playing and it's for your country and you're so proud to represent every single person you are, when you have that Australian jersey on, you're not really making any sacrifices. You're just doing what you love for the people you love. So I guess that's that.
So what do you believe it takes to be a champion? What sort of qualities do you think you need to be able to become a champion?
I think probably resilience is the biggest one. In rugby and probably everyday life, everyone would face a few hurdles and ups and downs. And in rugby, there's injuries, there's not being selected, there's things like this, like a coronavirus can come along, and the Olympics can be postponed till the following year. So there's all sorts of different things that can jump in your way that you've got to kind of get around. And I think resilience is probably the biggest one, and a fair bit of determination to get where you want to get to.
Yeah. Looking back on your days in school, is there anything that you would change?
Probably I wouldn't stop. I would never not play as much sport as I did, but I would probably focus on my education a lot more at the same time. I think I had a lot of time to do school, but I didn't do enough of it. And then from where I'm at now with my university and stuff, I think I had a lot more potential to give to my education. So that's probably a big thing where I wish if I went back, I would definitely put a lot more effort into my education, because I don't know, you can't afford to just bypass school.
Yeah, definitely. What is your fondest memory in your sporting career? So you've made the Australian team now. What's sort of one of your best memories whilst being in that Aussie team?
Um, we won a silver medal at the Commonwealth Games at the Gold Coast, which was pretty amazing. Running out in front of our whole entire family and friends, the stadium was packed. That was probably one of my biggest ones. And the second one was probably playing in France when we won the World Series. We had to beat France in the semi-final to completely cut off, and we won that. So we ended up beating New Zealand before we even got to the final. So that was probably pretty amazing. Right at the end of the season, had to win one game, and that was pretty awesome to come away with the series win.
Yeah. So what does life after sport look like for you? What's in your plans?
I'm currently studying media, communications and media at Griffith University. So I would want to probably go into the media industry, whether it's in front of the camera, maybe news reporting, something like that, sports reports. And I think my major will probably be journalism. So whether I become a sports journalist or something like that is definitely high up in my goals to achieve in the next upcoming years to graduate that. Another one is I really want to start a riding class near Sydney where I can teach any young kids or anyone to ride, but in particular anyone with a disability.
So that's your like riding horses.
Yeah, riding horses. Yeah. So teaching anyone to ride horses, but particularly I kind of want to create a riding for the disabled around Sydney for anyone to make the most of beautiful horses and their nature.
And lastly, for Glennie girls, what is your bit of advice you would give to anyone, whether they like sport or not, whatever their passion is? What advice would you give our Glennie girls?
I would think whether you like sport or not, or love it, however you feel about sport, just give it a go. And if you, no matter how good you are, always put 110% in. At training, don't ever take anything kind of half-heartedly, and make the most of meeting people, making contacts. And if you do get selected in a team, keep fighting for that next position. Never, you are in a team environment, but you are fighting against some other person who's trying to take your position. So always be really, I don't, what's the word? I don't know, passionate to try and make your spot and earn your spot in every single team you are selected in.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Dem. Girls, just remember Miss Hayes is still the best, and you get to see her every day. So, thanks, Dem.
That's okay. Bye, guys.
Bye, girls.